In 3.1 part 1, we will be doing polynomial long division. So we have to have a reminder of what long division looks like with regular numbers. So it might have been a while, but make sure you practice this. So we have two examples of numbers here. So long division with numbers, we're going to first start with this one. And so it's this like giant number divided by 7. So we just take it one piece at a time and it will be okay. So when we are dividing by 7, so I'm going to put the 7 on the outside as my divisor, and then 3, 4, 8, 9, 1, 9, 4 on the inside. And so the very first thing you look at is the first number on the inside. Okay, is that divisible by 7? No, not quite big enough. So we move over. So it's the first part of the inside divided by the outside. So how many times does 7 go into 34? And the answer is 4. And remember, we can't go over. So after we decide how many times it can go in, we put our answer on top, and then we multiply 4 times 7, and that is 28. And then we subtract, because we have to subtract out what we have just divided out. So we have to figure out, what do I have left over? So when I minus that, I get 6. Bring down the next number, so 68, and then we start all over again. You repeat yourself a lot of times with long division. So 68 divided by 7 on the outside is 9, and then we do 9 times 7, so 9 times 7, so we did the 4 times 7 as well. 9 times 7 is 63, so we put the 63 under here because that's what I divided out. We subtract, and we have 5 left over. And then we bring the next one down, 59. So how many times does 7 go into 59? And the answer is 8. So this is like the one, 7 times 8 is the one I have the hardest time with. So 7 times 8 is 56. 9 minus 6, and we subtract, and we have 3 left. So then we bring the 1 down, and we start all over again. 31 divided by 7. How many times can 7 go into 31? And the answer is 4 without going over. 4 times 7 is 28. And we just keep repeating. So we subtract, we get a 3, we bring the next one down. 39 divided by 7 is 5. 5 times 7 is 35. We minus, and we get 4. 44. So how many times does 7 go to 44? The answer is 6. 6 times 7 is 42. We subtract. And maybe I made a mistake along here somewhere, but that's okay. We get the idea. So we have a remainder, and there's lots of different things you can do with a remainder, especially with regular numbers. So you can put a decimal and then add some zeros and bring those, down here, and then bring those zeros down and then add decimals onto your number. But I don't want to do that this time. So what we're going to do, you can also put like R as a remainder and then your number, but you can also write it as a fraction, and that's what I want to practice doing because that's what we're going to do with our polynomial. So whatever you have as your remainder, so at the end of our number, we are just going to put 2, since it didn't divide evenly, I'm just going to put 2 divided by 7, and I really shouldn't have my decimal there anymore. Anyway, ignore the decimal. So my final answer is this number minus the decimal. And then with 2/7 at the end, because 2 was my remainder. So I just put 2 divided by whatever I'm dividing by over here. It didn't divide evenly, so I'm just going to say that it's still being divided by 7. And that's my final answer. So go ahead and practice that same thing with this number over here. So divided by 11, it's the same idea. We set it up the same way. How many times does 11 go? And then you start with the very first part. How many times does 11 go into the 89? It goes in this many times. You put the answer on top. So try that one out. Pause the video, and then I will go to the answer so you can check. Okay, there's our answer. So we have 81,306. And apparently we had 6 left over as our remainder, so we just put 6 divided by 11, since that's what we are dividing by. So I will have right here the steps to long division. So we divide, answer goes on top, and then we multiply. So step number 2 is we multiply. The 2 times the 3 gives us the 6, and then we subtract, and then we bring down the next number, and then you repeat. There is a lot of repeating. So we're going to have very, very similar steps, but our polynomial long division is going to look like this. So we set it up exactly the same way, except we have to tweak a few things, but let's set it up before we continue. So we have x cubed plus 4x squared minus 16x plus 8. Go ahead and write this down in your notes, please. And try it out at the same time, or go back and watch the video, or pause the video and see if you can do the next step. But we start the same way. So, but in this case, we're not going to look at the whole on the outside. We're going to look at the first term on the inside and just the first term on the outside, not the whole thing. So the question is, how many times does x go into x to the third? There's a couple ways of thinking about this. So you can just think about dividing. You can just say x to the third divided by x. So let's kind of think about that over here. X to the third divided by x. One of our x's cancels, and that ends up with x squared. You can also think about, okay, what can I put up here that when I multiply it by x, it's going to give me x to the third. So that will give you the same thing either way. So x squared, when I divide the inside, the first inside, by the first term on the outside, I get x squared. But then I do exactly the same thing as I did before. I'm going to multiply. But this time you're multiplying the whole thing. So x squared times x gives me x to the third. X squared times negative 2 gives me minus 2x squared. And then from here, do you remember what we're supposed to do? And the answer is subtract. Here's where it gets a little bit tricky, because I have to subtract the entire thing of what I put down here. So you could either put my parenthesis here and then a minus sign just to like remind yourself that you have to subtract the whole thing. Or you could just automatically distribute that negative sign to all of this so that you remember, okay, I have to subtract this guy, this x to the third, but then this minus minus is going to end up being plus negative, or a plus 2x squared. So either way, I'll just leave it on the outside for now, but it might be smart. From here on out, I'm going to distribute that. So I'm going to do these lines so I don't forget to do that. So x cubed minus x cubed, that goes to 0. That first term should always go to 0. And then we have 4x squared plus 2x squared. So then we have 6x squared. Bring down the next term. According to our steps over here, same idea. So we've subtracted. Now we're bringing down the next term, and we are repeating. So now we're on the repeat step. So back to dividing. So first term on the inside, 6x squared, divided by the first term on the outside, which is x. 6x squared divided by x. One of our x's cancels, and we end up with 6x. So plus 6x. And then we multiply. And remember, when you're multiplying, you multiply by the whole expression on the outside. So 6x times x gives me this. 6x times negative 2 gives me this. Okay, now when I'm subtracting, I'm going to just distribute my minus sign to all of this. So that becomes a minus. This becomes a plus. And now let's combine our like terms. So 6x squared minus 6x squared goes to 0, which it always should. Negative 16x plus 12 gives me negative 4x. Bring the next term down, positive 8. And then we repeat. First term on the inside divided by first term on the outside. So then we have negative 4x divided by x. The x's canceled, and I'm left with negative 4. So then we multiply negative 4 times all of that out front. Negative 4x. And then we end up with a positive 8. I'm going to distribute my minus sign, remember, because I'm minusing all of the stuff that I just wrote down, so that becomes a plus. This becomes a minus. So negative 4x plus 4x goes to 0. plus 8 minus 8 also goes to 0. So I do not have a remainder this time. So I don't have to write a fraction as my remainder, but this right here is my final answer after I've divided those two things out. So if you want to see all of the steps written down as one, here's an idea of that, but we end up with the same thing. So, okay, and then you repeat yourself so many times. It depends on how long your polynomial is, but just like the first example we had, sometimes it repeats a lot. Okay, so if you want to pause the video and try this yourself, go ahead and do that. Always, always, always try to do that, and then just check your answer afterwards. But we're going to set this up again so you can have another example in your notes. When you set this up, make sure you have all of your terms, no missing terms here. So I have x to the third, x squared, x, and then x to the 0. You should have all of the terms underneath your very first one. So we don't have to fill in any blank spaces, but just so you know, that is something that we have to check for. And we are dividing by 3x minus 2. Okay, so again, first term on the inside, first term on the outside. So I'll write a little thing over here, 6x cubed divided by 3x. So number 6 divided by 3 gives me 2. X cubed divided by x gives me x squared. So 2x squared is my first part of my answer. So 2x squared times 3x gives me the same term, 2x squared times negative 2. And don't forget, at this point, we are subtracting. So let's distribute that subtraction sign here and here, so that becomes a plus. So 6x cubed minus 6x cubed is 0. Negative 13 plus 4x squared gives me negative 9x squared. Bring down the next term, plus 12x, and then we repeat. So first term here divided by first term here. So negative 9x squared divided by 3x. The numbers being divided gives me negative 3. X squared divided by x gives me x. So that's the next part of my answer. Next step is multiply. So negative 3x times all of this up here. Negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6x. Distribute the minus sign, so that becomes a plus. That becomes a minus. So add those together, get 0. 12x minus 6x gives me 6x. Bring the next term down and repeat. First term on the inside divided by the first term on the outside. 6x divided by 3x. 6 divided by 3 is 2. X divided by x is 1. So 2 is all I have left for that term. And then we multiply. 2 times 3x is 6x. 2 times negative 2 is 4, negative 4. And we distribute that minus sign, minus this, so that becomes a plus. 6x minus 6x is 0. 6 plus 4 is positive 10. So this time I do have a remainder. I don't have anything to bring down or divide by the next time, by the next one. So this is our remainder. So we do exactly the same thing as we did before with our remainder. So we just tack it on to our final answer. So write it as a fraction. This is a positive 10. So I'm going to put a plus. 10 didn't divide out evenly, so I need to say that 10 still needs to be divided by 3x minus 2 because that is our divisor. And so this is our final answer right here. How did you do? Did you try that on your own? It's okay if you didn't. And if you were having a hard time keeping up with the steps, make sure that you are pausing the video as you go, or rewinding it, watching it again, and logging into the Google Meet if you have questions. So there we go. Have a remainder, but we know what to do with it. Okay, here we go. Here is a situation where we have some missing terms, so we have to figure out like what to do with those. So Missing terms, so we have the x cubed, x squared, but we're missing the x term. So any missing terms you have, when you fill those out, 12x cubed, we have an x squared, but we're missing the x term, so we fill that in with a 0 x squared. Actually, I think that they fill it in for us. There we go, yes. So fill it in. If there is something missing, make sure you fill it in with the 0x, and then we go from there. Set it up, do it the same way. 12x squared plus 4x squared plus 0x. And that's going to help us align our work. Because if we align it this way, then we have all of our like terms that are going to be lined up the right way. And we don't have to worry about figuring out where everything goes. Oop, this is a cube. Okay, so we start dividing. First term divided by the outside term. So 12x cubed divided by x. 12x squared. And then we multiply. So we have 12x cubed plus 12x squared. Don't forget to distribute that minus sign to everything. That becomes a minus as well over here. That goes to 0. This goes to negative 8x. And then we bring the next term down. First term on the inside divided by first term on the outside. Divided by x. One of the x's canceled. So negative 8x. And then we multiply. So negative 8x squared minus 8x. Do not forget to distribute that minus sign. So that becomes a plus, that becomes a plus. So we have 8x left. Bring the 4 down and repeat. First term on the inside divided by the first term on the outside. So 8x divided by x. The x is canceled, so we are just left with 8. Then we multiply 8 times x, 8 times 1, distribute that minus sign. So then we end up with negative 4 as our remainder. So remember with remainders, this time it's a negative. So I put minus 4 over, our divisor is x plus 1. So there we go. There is our final answer sitting there on top.